$250 million a year organization at this point. And it needs somebody who has that kind of experience in dealing with the kinds of big actions and the big organizations that I do deal with. I have that experience to bring. And so that's really what made me want to run, really seeing a need and then seeing that I could fill that need effectively to make sure that we could adequately get our resources in the hands of the students and the families who need it without that money getting diverted elsewhere, whether it's litigation that could be avoided, whether it's sort of general fiscal mismanagement or just simple mistakes.
What kind of fiscal mismanagement do you think there is?
Well, for one, we've had a series of mistakes over the last few years, avoidable mistakes, contract mistakes with the CBA with the teachers. That was a $4.5 million error. That was mitigated, after the fact, but still at cost to the district.
Wasted a lot of money.
Right. And so, there are issues like that. There are issues with litigation costs. We spent millions of dollars on outside counsel the last few years, and we're going to spend more. We need to have a general counsel. The city has one. And I'm sure you know how effective and useful it is to be able to have somebody who can advise and then proactively make sure you're compliant so that you don't end up spending those costs later on. And then just general processes. With big organizations like the city or the district, you need to have the kinds of organizational processes to make sure your boxes are all checked, so that when you have your committees and you have all these different moving parts, there's effective communication to make sure that roles are clearly defined and everybody's doing sort of their part to make sure the product is the best product possible. And a lot of times there's bleed over between those roles. In the past, we've seen, we have a new superintendent now, and I think one of the big goals of hiring Dr. Austin is to make sure that management within the district is really crisp and clear. The rules of the board are crisp and clear. So everything from just general procedural policy to making sure that Robert's rules are followed, to really make the board a credible legislative body, which it is. But having that kind of professional management oversight so that we can end up putting our money towards the students. So that's the general, the big picture, and then the individual issues where I'd like the money to be going is certainly bolstering innovation, creating an incubator for teachers to create and expand those engagement-driven programs in the district that are so popular and so underfunded, and then really focusing in on equity and closing the achievement gap, which continues to grow.
Why is that growing?
It's interesting because...
Is it actually growing?
Yeah.
It is, okay.
Yeah. And, obviously, relative to the nation, we're doing very well. But again, if there are students who aren't being well served in our community, then we're not doing the best that we can do. And so one of the ways that we can do a better job is really looking at the data to identify the trends, to identify groups and subgroups that are disproportionately affected by our policies. So we can actually target in what are the policies that are having those sort of negative effects. And I think that's difficult to identify why the achievement gap is growing, because it tends to be such a...
growing by a lot.
Not by a lot, but it is certainly growing in the last year. And it's such an emergent condition. It's like there's no one cause that we can identify, so we try to do everything we can. And what at least we've identified is that getting individualized resources in the hands of the families of students who are underserved is sort of a key area. And so the district has these family engagement specialists. They have partnerships with tutoring organizations. So everything that we can do to expand those, to really identify and then develop plans for families who are underserved to make sure that those students get the same kinds of support that they need. And that's where we should be really putting money into, along with special education, which is another area where there is an achievement gap. And actually, the district has completely redesigned its special education approach in the last few months. They're putting $2.5 million towards just a whole slew of additional professionals to really help mainstream special needs students to make them a part of the community. So again, with the achievement gap, it's hard to pinpoint the exact cause, but I think the solution is just continuing to put more individualized resources in the hands of the families.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you're trying to do?
shore up the accountability as well. I mean, if we have effective oversight, then that decreases the need for increased accountability.
Are you saying like getting rid of like teacher tenure type stuff? Or
No, I mean sort of after the fact responses to issues like Title IX reporting.
Oh, I see.
And then a way to build trust between the community and the board, because I think that trust has faltered over the last several years. And a way to build that trust is an idea that I have is to have an ombudsman. There are other districts that have office of the ombuds, and in terms of building trust and liaising with the community to actually have more independence in internal investigations, to maintain the integrity of those investigations, and to have a voice for parents when they believe that the board or the district is adequately listening to them would be, I think, invaluable, especially with issues as it regards to individual students' IEPs and special education plans, sexual harassment as well. So that's sort of an area, I think, transparency and accountability, building that up, and then making sure that we're implementing properly all the changes that we're going to make to comply with Title IX. And I know that the Office of Civil Rights recently sort of gave the district a glowing view, saying we've done, taken great strides to build that up. So continue to do that as well.
What about like computer science in schools?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think that that's part of sort of the innovation of building up our curriculum to be a 21st century model for education is incredibly important. And that includes offering the opportunities for computer education and everything that's going to let our students succeed in this modern economy. And I think that we're looking very much at an economy now that is less stagnant than it used to be in the past. And I'm sure you know this from experience, but anyone who's been out in the working world for a decade knows that we don't have that kind of single track market anymore. And so being able to develop those core skills for students, the kind of like resilience and interpersonal communications and leadership, those are so important to actually being able to work in teams in whatever you do, because our paths are so much more circuitous now.
Well, the reason why I ask is because I have two kids in the district right now, right? They're at Green right now, middle school, and even in elementary school, right? There was like little to no computer science at all.
Yeah.
And which to me was, as a parent, very surprising because back when I went to school, okay, that's a long time ago, there were computer science even starting in elementary school, right? And I grew up in one of the poorest districts in LA, and so in Palo Alto we're it's probably one of the more wealthy districts, right? And a total lack of computer science, at the elementary and junior high is kind of shocking to me,
right,
as a parent, right? And I don't understand why.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's one of those skills that we should be giving students.
Well, at least as an elective, right? But I'm
Right.
surprised that there's nothing, right?
Mhm.
There's absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah.
And I know other parents have been lobbying for it, but so far nothing, right? And the only thing you could do is if you're wealthy enough, then you could just hire, send your kids to computer camp or something like that, right? But what about for everyone else, right? What about the like you talk about this achievement gap, right?
Mhm.
What about the people that can't afford private tutors or extracurricular classes, right? What are they supposed to do, right? So I don't know, what's your thoughts on addressing that issue?
Well, one of them is we look at CTE, career and technical education, with a certain lens right now. I mean, at least the way that the district has it laid out, those include classes like the culinary classes and auto, but really CTE should include those kinds of computer science program courses as well, because when you're talking about preparing students for skills and a knowledge-based economy, computer science and computer programming is first and foremost. It's less theoretical than it used to be. I mean, it used to be such an academic course,
Well,
right?
I mean,
but now it's a skill.
When I this is like a long time ago now, but like there was basic programming or logo programming, and I mean this was I think when I was in first and second grade, right? This is a long time ago, right? And so I'm just like floored that in Palo Alto there is nothing, right? I mean, it's just shocking, right?
Right. When I was in starting from third grade.
Well, you went to private school though, right? So
Right.
your parents could afford it, but
Sure.
not everyone in Palo Alto is wealthy, right?
Agreed.
And not everyone can afford supplemental, computer science classes for their kids, right? You talk about the achievement gap. Some parents have the resources to invest a lot in private tutors, right? But some parents can't, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I think That's why I was curious to know.
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think we're the heart of Silicon Valley. I think we need to do more to actually enable all of our students to build the kinds of skills they'll need, in this economy.
So what would you do to fix this problem?
Well, one of the things would be to look at.
Because by the way, I asked about this, right? As a parent, because I used to be on PTA, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? For my kids' elementary school, and it's also like, oh, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources to do it, right? And you say, oh, you can go start a computer club or something like that, but that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And I know in other districts they have this, right?
Right.
And how come in Palo Alto, and we donate to Pi, we donate to the school, donate to the classroom, right? We donate all like. It makes you wonder, like, why isn't this happening? This, to me, it's almost like a very basic requirement today.
It's a question of priorities, and I don't think we've prioritized it in the past. It's not that we don't have the money. I mean, we are entering into a deficit after next year, but there is still money to be put into programs. And if we look at computer science as a way to start closing the achievement gap, as a way to start supporting all students, then we can prioritize the money that we're going to be spending to close the achievement gap into those types of programs. So I do think that we need to do a better job of prioritizing, what are the reasons why we do need to have the options for computer programming in our schools at an early age. And as you identified, one of the reasons is, well, that is a very necessary skill nowadays when you want to go out into this economy. And if certain students aren't able to build those skills simply because they're socioeconomically underserved, they don't have the resources, then we as a district are doing a disservice. So prioritizing funding for those courses should be couched into our sort of equity plan. It should be a part of what we're doing to close the achievement gap, because we have money going towards that. And if
Computer science education?
Yeah.
Really? Where? Like high school level, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. But when we put money towards closing the achievement gap, we're putting money towards increasing the tutoring partnerships and family engagement specialists.
Well, why not just do something simple, right? Like make it a available elective. So if kids I mean, I know some districts are saying that computer science now is mandatory. You must do it, right? I'm not advocating for that, but why not give these students the option, right? Because right now there is no option, right? And so, like, why not, right?
There's that option in high school, but that is
high school, right? But
so middle schools should have that option.
Well, even elementary school, right? I mean, I had that option as a kid, right?
Right.
And like I said, I went to school a long time ago. Right? This is when computers are really expensive. Computers today are really cheap,
right?
And
for $100 off eBay.
Yeah, I mean, and then
we have the technology.
You look at Stanford; it's one of the most popular majors now, right?
Right.
I mean, and not just Stanford, but most universities, because, and so I'm just, I mean, because if someone knows how to program, they'll never go hungry. They will. Right. They can always get a job somewhere doing something, right? And so I'm just kind of surprised that there's not much effort around this.
I agree with you. I think that you need to prioritize it. I think that at least the middle school and high school levels, I know how we would do that, which is offering those classes and making it part of it.
I think high school. I mean,
high school does.
High
school's been offering it for a while.
Yeah. Up to APCS.
But nothing in middle school, nothing in elementary school.
Right. And I think a broader.
And also, I think because I take computer science in college, so at the college level, you don't start programming until you get to college. Life is really hard. Yeah. Because you're so far behind. Because almost all the other kids have been programming since high school, if not earlier, right? So,
and a greater breadth of programming type of classes would then help sort of engage with students who may not want to take, a certain type of class. But if you have web design on one hand, programming is so diverse. There are so many different languages and so many different ways to apply them. So I think looking at it from an application standpoint.
Well, I don't think you have to be so fine-grained. I mean, I think anything's better than nothing, right?
Exactly.
So, I'm not so picky, but it's just more like, let's get something going, right?
I agree. I think we should prioritize it. I think we should.
So is it part of your platform?
Yeah, it's part of the innovation platform.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I think we have to go to our next meeting.
Oh, no.
We're about 8 minutes past that, but thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Let's get to the next call.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming, Shounak. I'll see you later.